Hi, I'm Aoife from Wicklow Willow and welcome to our Garland-making workshop, okay? So we have a few bits and pieces that we collected to make our garland. I have them here. I have some pieces of goat willow, which is here. I have some nice birch that we collected as well. I'll show you that now. Okay, so we have our nice forage material. We have our flowers. So we have a nice selection of flowers. We have some gorse, which is really lovely and nice and important, some primroses, and some bluebells, some white bells, and a few more bits and pieces there as well, okay? Now, in addition to that, I got a couple more pieces from my garden. I got some contorted hazel. I may or may not use it. I just thought the shape was really nice and it might be a nice thing to use. So have a look around your garden for what you have. I kind of got, I suppose, the kind of common bits and pieces that at this time of year most people will have, but in your own garden or in, I suppose in your locality, if you can find stuff on hedgerows or that way, you'll definitely come up with a few nice little extra bits and pieces to include. So whatever you think is nice, harvest it and use it for the workshop, okay? So these are two extra bits that I thought would look well, okay? So materials wise, what you're going to need for this is you're going to need some jute. I'm going to use jute string, but you can use any kind of string. I think the jute string is kind of nice because it's brown, it's natural fibre, and it kind of blends into what you're doing, okay? So it's kind of in keeping with the whole idea of sustainability, our environment and how we use our materials and the type of materials that we use. It's really important, okay? So I've got a few pieces of string pre-cut here. I've got scissors for that, and I have my secateurs because I'm going to need the secateurs for trimming and then the scissors for the string, okay? So they're the materials that you're going to need, and we're going to need to maybe cut some additional string in a minute for that as well, okay? So the first thing we're going to do for our garland is we're going to make our willow and birch hoop, okay? So we need to make a kind of about 10 inch, say 8 to 10 inches is what we're looking for in terms of the size of the hoop, okay? So for that, what we're going to start off with is we're going to start off with a piece of willow. Now, willow is really, really flexile. It's a really versatile material and it's really, really good for this. But if you find dogwood possibly in your locality or, any other kind of like oak, like nice pieces of ash, that kind of thing, if you can, sometimes in hedgerows you'll see them growing really, really long, or hazel. So keep an eye out for stuff and definitely, get 3 or 4 of them and you can use them if you can't find willow. But willow is pretty much everywhere, so you should be okay with that, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my length of willow, okay? Now we have these side branches, but this one is fairly clean along here. I'm going to leave these branches in because they make an interesting kind of design or an interesting shape as you go along. You'll see how the garland kind of builds up and how these little side branches are part of the celebration of Bielsa in a way, because they're the new growth. We have some little buds and that kind of thing, and all of the materials that we're using in that respect kind of celebrate the coming of summer. They've got some nice little flowers, some of them, they've got some nice leaves coming on them, and they're all showing signs of growth, which is what we're here to celebrate, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press it up against my stomach because that kind of offers a little bit of support, okay? I've got the thick end in one hand and the thinner end over here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to bend it around like that. Okay, so you're kind of crossing over the willow on top of itself like that. It's almost like you're going to tie your shoelace, okay? So you have this circular shape coming here now. Now, leaning it up against your stomach just gives you, it's like an extra hand. It just helps you keep this shape and it helps to prevent this from breaking, okay? So, I mean, if it breaks, it's no big deal. You can just start again, or if you don't mind, you can just continue. It's whatever you want. But I like it when it doesn't break because it has this nice continuous shape. It's a nice way to work, okay? So what I'm going to do now is this is crossing over like that. You have the crossed piece here, the thinner over the thicker one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the thinner piece and I'm going to gently curve it in underneath. So it's kind of wrapping around the outside thicker piece to make a nice frame for our garland, okay? So this is the hoop element, okay? So it's like I've just tied it there, and you see the way it kind of holds the shape? It holds the shape nicely, and willow is really good work for this. And all these little branches kind of can lend kind of a helping hand as such with this, okay? Now I'm going to turn it a little bit. I have this thinner part coming out here, so again it's coming on the outside, so I'm going to follow this line here. I'm going to curve it around the outside, bring it through the center of the hoop and back out, and I'm going to leave it like that for the minute. Okay, now later on we're going to trim it up and we're going to have a look at what would look best, but for the moment we're going to leave all of our branches on it because it's really about, I suppose, seeing how the overall design works before we start taking anything off it, okay? So we'll do that for the minute. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to get another piece of willow. Okay, so now I'm going to add a second piece of willow to this, okay, just to kind of, you know, bulk it up a bit. So I'm going to take my hoop again, second piece of willow. I'm going to put the thicker end through the hoop on that side, so just directly across from this one, and then I'm going to bring it around the outside of the hoop, and then I'm going to bring it back in to the center, okay, like that. Okay, so it's gone in there now, and just bring any little branches that are on it with it, so that you kind of keep them all in one place. Now I think that's gone through nicely. Now we have some extra branches sticking out here. Some of them might be a little bit big to leave sticking out, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring those in as well. So you see this little one sticking out, I'm going to bring it back underneath and through the hoop again to keep it in place. Sometimes they pop back out, but what we can do is we can just try and rearrange the branches so that it stays in place. Now it's kind of lost its shape slightly, so what I'm going to do is just give it a little bit of a pull to make it come to a more circular shape, and I'm just pushing it gently then against my hip there to help that along. Now, okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it, this piece here is quite thick and this piece here quite thick. So just before I continue, I'm going to get my secateurs, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm just going to get rid of that really bulky part of the end of it there, because that can just interfere with the next bit that's coming along. I'm going to reshape it, holding the thicker parts in place so they don't pop out, and I'm going to put that down, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in some birch, okay? So I have some nice pieces of birch. It's a really nice colour, some nice brown, it'll look really well. And what I'm going to do first is, just to give myself a little bit of length along here, the first thing I'm going to do is just any little bits and pieces, going to cut them off. I think these smaller ones here look great, so I'm going to leave those on, and I'm going to put this one in, okay? So similar to the way that you put the other ones in, you're going to get again the thick end. So if you just have a look at where you have those ones, you have a thicker one over here and you have a thicker one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one kind of halfway between the two. So we've got one thick one here and a thick one here, and I'm going to place this thicker end in over halfway between the two. And then I'm going to again wrapping around. So I'm going to, and you see the way you have these little branches in the way, so it might be an idea to bring it around those little branches gently, and then around the outside of your hoop, and then back in through the center. So it's always good to lead with the thinner parts, hold on to them with your hand like that, bring them through the center gently, trying to avoid all those little branches and not to break them if you can, because those little branches all kind of lend themselves to interesting shapes. Okay, now, and again, we've still got this quite a long piece of birch here, so it's a nice piece to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that around, so it's coming out from the inside, around the outside of the frame again, back in through the center and out like that. Okay, and then I'm going to just give it a little bit of a straighten up, and we've got it coming along there nicely. Okay, now we might be able to get this one back in again. So we've got these two pieces of birch that are coming out quite a lot. Okay, so I'm going to take one to begin with, and again leading with the thinner end around the outside of the frame here, back in, and that will sit in nicely there. And I'm going to take this second birch kind of side branch again around the outside and back in. Okay, so it's coming along bit by bit. Okay, so we have some nice pieces of willow sticking out, we have the birch working itself around. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put maybe a few lighter pieces of birch, a nice strong frame there, and we're going to just put in just a couple of pieces, maybe one of the lighter pieces of birch. Okay, so I'm going to take this branch here, and we have this nice small little one here. I'm going to give that a go, and then do we have another one? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that nice light one. So we're just picking a couple of the light branches off. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the frame that I've made, and if I find a little gap somewhere, like so, I'm kind of looking at, okay, where would I like to fill out? Okay, so there's a bit of maybe a gap here with the birch. So what I could do then is I could put my piece of birch in using the frame as kind of something to brace it off. So kind of a little gap there, put it in, it's nice and braced off the back of that piece of willow here, and then bring it around the outside and back in again through the center of the hoop, and just leave it sitting out like that. Now we have got string here for, you know, helping to kind of keep it all together in the very end, but I mean that'll definitely stay together like that. But you see the way the birch has kind of a nice balance between here and here, okay? Now I just want to have a look at it there for a minute. I think I'm going to leave it at that in terms of the birch and the willow, and we're going to move on to creating the nice piece of the flower element that's going to be built into our garland, okay? So I'm going to leave that over there for a minute. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the materials for the garland, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do before I take my flowers out is I'm going to get a long piece of string. Give yourself a nice bit of length just so you have a few options. So you're kind of talking about something like that length, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lie that down like that. So that's going to be where I'm going to place all of my flowers here, okay? And then I'm going to be able to tie it with the string. It's all ready to go, and it's going to make things a little bit easier, okay? So the first thing I'm going to put down is I got some nice damson flowers here. I thought they were really, really nice. They're really delicate, and they've got some lovely pieces of lovely soft leaves growing as well. And I just thought they looked really good, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a kind of a little cut here so that I have one side, and I'm going to place that down like that. And then I'm going to get rid of that extra weight there, and I get rid of that piece there, and I'm going to place them like this. So I have my string underneath, and then I'm going to just cross them over like that, okay? So all of our materials that from here are going to be kind of layered down on top of each other, and then we're going to tie it with the string. You'll see how it works, okay? So I've got my damson down first, okay? So I think what might look well now is I'm going to take out maybe a few leaves, okay? So I'm going to put a primrose leaf down there, and I have another one here as well. I'm going to put that one down. So I'm going to just kind of making sure that they're crossing over the string, and I think they look nice there. And I'm going to take out a few other flowers before I go on, just to have a look at what I have. The gorse is really, really spiky. Okay, so I'll show you what we're going to do with that in a minute. I'm going to just lay it out there for a minute just so I can get these flowers out. Okay, now the spring, or these summer flowers and spring flowers, but summer flowers, they all wilt really, really quickly. They have to be kept in water. So this garland, I suppose, it doesn't last very long, but it is only made for the one day, for that May Day, for our Bealtaine celebrations. So it'll last for the day, but just to let you know that you do need to keep them in water because they wilt so quickly, okay? So I'm going to get my primroses out. Got my bluebells, the white bells. They look really, really good. We live right beside a forest, so there's lots of really nice wildflowers that grow nearby. And I thought that these would look really, really well. We have some dandelions. You can't forget the dandelion. What a really nice flower too. And great bee pollinators, I'm told. And we have a few more bits here. So I'll just take them out because I just want to see what I have, okay? Now I also have some dandelion leaves in here, and I think that they're really, really such a lovely shape. They have kind of this nice serrated kind of edge on them. So I just wanted to have a little look there. I thought I had a second one, but I don't. It's okay, we'll put one in anyway. All right. Now just remember that you can put in whatever you want. So if there's any flowers that are your favorite in the garden, there's no real, you know, there's no rules about this at all. It's just whatever you like, whatever you think looks nice. So I'm just crossing them over like that. Now I'm going to put some more heavier stuff down. The gorse is really, really bulky. So I think the best thing to do with this is I'm going to hold it at the end here. I'm going to get my secateurs, and I'm just going to give it a bit of a trim. Okay, I'm going to take some of that weight off it. Okay, so I'm just taking off these bits here. And what that's going to do is it's going to just prevent it from getting too bulky, okay? And it is hard to handle, so I would use some gloves if you have them. Okay, now I'm going to cross that down like that. Again, it's lying over the string, okay? I'm going to get another piece, and I'm going to give it a bit of a clip again, holding it at the end so I don't spike my fingers too much. I'm going to give this a trim again, okay? So secateurs are very handy for this. And all I'm doing is taking off the bulk. So just those little spikes that are coming out. You don't have to take them all off, just a few, just to kind of let yourself basically be able to put them down. And also when you're tying, it just helps it not be so bulky, okay? And gives the other flowers a little bit of an opportunity to be seen a bit better, okay? Now, okay, so I've got some lovely bluebells here as well. I think they're a bigger flower, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those down now as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this nice thick stem that comes down here, and I'm just going to put them in through some of the other kind of gaps and stuff through it. So you're just trying to make it look like well, it is like a very natural kind of little bouquet of flowers. It's just a kind of as if like you're looking at them in the wild. So the idea is for not to be too kind of artificial looking. So whatever way you put them in, just put them in kind of crossing over the string, whichever way. This one's really, really long. It doesn't need to be that long. Just going to give it a little bit of a clip. Okay, and I'm going to put it in. Okay, so we have a nice mixture of blue and yellow and white and green behind them, okay? And it kind of just sets a scene, okay? Okay, so next thing we're going to put in is some of these lovely white bells, okay? Or blue bells, okay? And similar to the way we've been putting them in all along, we're going to put them through the material that's already there. So making sure that your string is in that center, and as we put in our materials, we're kind of crossing over, and the string is going to tie, it's going to be the common kind of bind that's going to tie it all together. In order for that to work, we have to cross them in through the materials like this. I'm going to put that in, and then it also gives this kind of nice natural kind of feel to what we're working with, okay? So you can put some of them in longer than others. You see the way some of these stalks are going to be poking out the back, but all of that is going to be trimmed off afterwards anyway, and it'll look really well, okay? So I've got 2 of those white bells in now. I think I'll put another couple in at the bottom here. So see the way I'm kind of getting the thick part of the stem, and I'm just kind of feeding it through like that. And what's happening is it's crossing over the string and it's coming out the back, okay? And that way you have this nice arrangement, okay? So I'm going to try and put this one through here, kind of to get, so I've got like some white up here, and then I'm going to again have a look at where I'd like the white to come out. So I've got some white coming down here like this. I have these nice damson blossoms, we have the firs, and we have the bluebell, okay, and we have some of the leaves underneath, so primrose leaves and a little bit of dandelion leaves, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some of the dandelions, because these are nice with their faces out, nice and bright, and we have kind of this part in the middle here, which is, I suppose, a little bit blank at the minute, okay? But if we get a dandelion, maybe 4 or 5 of them, and put them in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in again, crossing over, but kind of with their faces facing out towards you, okay? So you see the way we have it here, and what happens then is we start to build up the center of it, okay? So again, crossing over the string, making sure that that's happening, but at the same time what you're doing is you're putting the dandelions facing out and kind of covering up that space in the middle, okay? Like that, okay? Another one there. I think I'll put another one in. Oops, the firs is trying to get back into it. Put it back over there, and we'll put one underneath here. I'll lift it up slightly, and put a dandelion in like that, okay? I think that looks nice, okay? And sure, we'll put in another one, why not? I'll put one in here at the back, crossing over, okay? And we have their faces looking out, okay? Now, this is the last little flower that I'm going to put in. Actually, no, I'm wrong. It's not the last little flower. I'm going to put in the primrose, then we're going to put in some of these really nice forget-me-nots as well, okay? Because we've got a whole bunch. I tried to pick them singly, and some of them came out. So we'll take some of those forget-me-nots out so I don't forget them again. And what I'm going to do is I'll trim a few of those stalks out so I can pick some of them out, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to arrange them a little bit, and we have them at hand, okay? Now, I'll leave them there for a minute, okay? Actually, over there. Oh, over there. Okay, now, so I'll get my primroses, okay? Little primroses, nice little stalk. Oh, that firs is coming out, just push that back in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if I need to give it a little trim, sometimes they can be a little bit bent at the end, and if they are, just give it a trim. And then what you're doing is you're just putting them in the center there again. We don't need too many of anything, I don't think. It's just a little bit of everything, and then that creates this nice wildflower look, okay? And I'm going to put another one in. Might lift this up, the whole thing, holding it, and just place that across the string underneath at the bottom, like that, okay? And I'll put another primrose in here. And again, just going to give that a little trim there. I'm going to put that in here so that the face of the flower is kind of looking up. And that way you have different angles covered. You've got a little bit at the front, some hanging down, coming out the sides. You've got this part in the centre that's nice and filled up, okay? So the last little flower that we're going to put in is the forget-me-not, which is just such a lovely little flower, okay? And there's nice little clusters, okay? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe put in a cluster at a time, okay? I'm going to take a few, trim them down, little bits like that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shove them in through it again, like that, okay? So I'm going to do that again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few of them together. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to make a nice little miniature kind of bouquet, okay? And I'm going to again find a gap where you can put that. Mind the furs there, it's kind of prickly. Might even lift that up a bit and put those through there like that. Okay, I'm going to do that again. Okay, it's quite a nice effect. So we have this little one here and that little one there. So I'm just trimming them up, getting them all together, including some of the leaves, which is nice, and then finding a space that'll accommodate them. Okay, so at the back there, making sure the string is going to cross over them again, and I think I'll go for another little bouquet. Okay, sorry, my scissors. So I'm going to trim that, take a few extra ones with it, arrange them in a little bunch, and then put them in like that, stems first. Okay, now I think that looks quite good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a nice tie all the way around. So you saw the way I had the string laid out, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move all those little nice delicate flowers out of the way of the string. So as I go to tie my string, I'm just going to make sure that the flowers are not going to be interfered with too much. So just gently move them if you have to. And then what you're going to do is just a normal tie. So you're just going to knot it. Okay, so I'm going to give it a little tie. And then, so making sure the little primrose there that might need to come out slightly. There we go, so it doesn't get squashed too much. And then the dandelion the same, going to move it slightly out of the way. And then give it a nice tight tie, like that. And then another tie, like that. So then we have it all firmly tied together, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of a trim, okay? And to trim it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the whole thing over. So you see here, you have all the back of it going on, okay? So you have all these like bits, heavier materials. We don't need them, okay? Got an extra leaf there, we don't need. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my secateurs, and I'm just going to make sure that my string is around what I want it to be around, and then I'm going to just carefully give these extra stems at the back a little trim. And that way they won't be poking out and you won't see them from the front, okay? So again, a little trim. So it's just all that extra, mainly the bluebells really, and there's one there that I could give a little trim to, okay? And that bit there. We have these longer pieces here. I might just feed those ones back in. I think they're actually a primrose that may need to be poked back in. So if I just put that in like that, it should be okay. And that one's caught up there. Give it a little trim. Okay, so that's the back of it. Take off any extra bits that you don't need. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it around again. And that way we have the bouquet element of it ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to just make a bit of space for myself. I'm going to set that to one side for a minute. I'm going to move my tools over here, and I'm going to bring back my nice round hoop. Okay, now it's gone a little bit out of shape. That's okay. I'm going to give it a little push. So you kind of, it's very flexible material, so you can give it a little bit of a push. Now I'm going to decide where I'm going to put my nice flower element. Okay, so I think I've got some nice branches up here, and I think down here is a kind of, there's nice space for it there. I think it would kind of lend itself to that place there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down my hoop like this in front, and then I'm going to take the flowers and the piece of string that we used to tie it all together. I'm going to place that down around the hoop. Now what I'm going to do is I might need to put another extra tie here and there just to keep it in the place where I want it, but I'll give it its first tie first to start off with, I should say. Okay, so I've kind of moved into position there. Now what I'm going to do is, without damaging the flowers, I hope, I'm going to just give it a tie. Okay, so I just want to tie it on. So just a plain old knot really doesn't make a difference what way you do that, as long as it's securely tied. And I'm going to give it a nice tight tie there. Now as you can see, it's kind of hanging down a bit, but what we're going to do is we're going to use a few of the extra pieces of string that I've already cut to give it a little bit of extra kind of support. Okay, so there's this nice damson here. I think if I were to tie that up in place, and if I were to take the other side of it and tie that up in place, then we'd have a nice finished piece. Okay, now so in order to do that, I got a piece here that I've already cut, and I'm just going to try and find a place to tie it. So what I'm looking for is that this piece of the damson branch. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully tie that just down here, so you can't really see it. Okay, just where the little damson is, down into the frame of the hoop. Okay, so I'm going to get the string and just carefully tie that on. So what I might do is I'll just loop that around and gently turn that over like that, and I'm just going to tie it on, and that way it should stay where I want it. Okay, now I'm going to have another look at it, turn it back over, and I think that looks pretty good like that. We have a little runaway primrose which I'm going to put back in. Okay, back in there like that. I think that should look well. Now, so the last thing I'm going to do, I suppose, or one of the last things I suppose I'm going to do, is I'm going to just cut off this extra string at the back. Okay, we don't need that hanging out. I'm going to give it a trim there and there, there and there, so we don't need any of that. Now what you could do is you could make a little loop at the top here to hang it from. You can either use the main hoop to hang it, some people would like to do that, and other people might like to have a little string piece to hold it onto maybe a doorknob or something like that. Okay, or a little nail or a screw or something that you might put into a door to hold it. So in order to do that, again, all I'm going to do is get my little piece of jute. I'm going to give it a quick tie at the top, nice and tight, another tie so that it's tied around the hoop, and then I'm just going to give it a little knot at the top, and that way I have a nice little hoop to hold it all together. Okay, now, and then give it a trim. So what I have there is a Bieltna garland. Okay, so I'd be very happy with that. Okay, best of luck. I hope you get some lovely flowers, find some really nice materials, and take your time, because it's well worth it, and then hang it on your door for Bieltna to celebrate the coming of summer. Thanks for watching. See you again.